thanks everyone for coming here and joining us for the screening. It's been a packed house, and I hope everybody enjoyed the film. For those who came late, my name is Sridhar Rangan. I'm one of the partners of Solaris Pictures, which is the co-organizer along with ThefdZone. And there's a 125th screening of ThefdZone, so we're really privileged to be kind of co-organizing this particular event. I just want to kind of ask, because basically we'll structure this as an artist talk. So we want to kind of take Harjant through his journey of filmmaking to begin with. So we spend maybe around 10-15 minutes on that, and then we'll open up the floor to questions of each of the films, all the three films we can kind of talk about. So Harjant, in fact, most of your films actually deal with issues around masculinity, gender, and sexuality around Punjab and religion. One is like what made you kind of go through these particular aspects, because is it because you were born in Chandigarh and that's the milieu you are associated with, and or is there a discontent about that milieu in some way which kind of comes along with in your films?
I think you can never get your home out of your system, so you keep coming back to it and keep looking for some part of your identity that you left behind, especially when you migrate under circumstances where either you're not going to go back for a long time and you sort of lose that connection. And so my family migrated to the US in 1994, at the end of 1994, 95.
Of documentaries here right now, filmmakers and technicians. So I just thought, when you made this film, in terms of was there a model in which you want to base these films about? They're kind of anthropological in a certain way. Did PSBT, in some sense, the producer, influence the whole product, how it comes up? That's one. And how difficult was it getting some of the subjects? Because they're talking about very difficult and challenging areas of discussion, in a place like Chandigarh, and talking about basically hair, issues around hair and turban with Sikh people. How challenging was that? So we kind of talk about this and then open the...
I'm of the sort of philosophy that you do what you make do with what is available to you. These films were not produced on a very massive budget. Milind Soman was made for like $2,000. PSBT films, they were each made for like 7 lakh rupees, and I think I often lose money on my documentaries. I don't make money, which is the reason why I have my full-time teaching job, because that pays the bills. And then during the summer and the winter break, I get to go and make films. So it's worked out quite nicely. So with the question of the form, I'm certainly influenced by the ethnographic. There's a whole genre of ethnographic films within anthropology, and I've studied that, and I'm influenced by that. There's a feminist ethnographic filmmaker named Trinity Minha and a queer filmmaker named Marlon Riggs. Both of their work, I was really interested in in films that kind of play around with the idea of performativity and performance, and so that ended up forming my influence for what I did with Love and Mardistaan. The other two films, Roots of Love and Mardistaan, because they're for PSBT and they're going to show on television, the form was very different. And actually the model that I used is this TV show. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with it. It's called This American Life, which I really, really like, because they tell these beautiful stories about quotidian life, right? Very, very sort of everyday experiences, but they tell them in such a sincerity, right? And that's what I try to get at in my ethnographic research and my anthropological research, and as well as in my film interviews. I try to get at that kind of level of sincerity. And you can tell when you're a filmmaker and you're an experienced filmmaker, you can tell when somebody's not being sincere, or they're lying to you, or they're giving you kind of a made-up answer that they think that you want to hear. So I often really just met people through what, in anthropological terms, it's called snowball sampling, but that just means that word of mouth. You talk to somebody, talk to somebody else, and then somebody tells you somebody else, and that's how I met people. For both of the films, we shot over 8 hours of footage, and thankfully, because of digital technology, it's easy to do that. And then you cut it down. I edit my own films. I'm a big believer that in order to be a strong filmmaker, you have to be a good editor and you have to have a strong editing eye. And I also write a lot about my films, which I don't particularly like to do, but I force myself to do because I think once you can articulate your ideas on paper, then you can translate that onto the screen. Or at least it just forces you to sort of say, okay, what is this about? You know, and what is this about? And it can be the treatment that you wrote before you start the film can be very different from what it ended up being. You know, Roots of Love is a good example of that. Mardistaan is a good example of that. I thought Mardistaan was going to be about like these men behaving badly, right? And that's how my first treatment was written. Like all these Punjabi guys going on gaities and like just behaving really badly. I was going to show, you know, kind of be critical of these kind of chauvinistic, misogynist guys. But then as I was making it and as I was thinking about it and editing it, I realized this needs to be a film that needs to capture, because we already know what men are like, you know, the stereotype of masculinity is like, you know, the negative stereotypes of, it needs to be a film that needs to capture people who are challenging those stereotypes, those who are working outside of those stereotypes, who are making very different decisions and are living, you know, happily with those decisions. And I think in some ways the four men whose lives I capture, in my opinion, embody that, those, and it takes a lot of guts, you know, to kind of not give into the stereotype or not give into the kind of hegemonic notion of what, how you're supposed to be.
That's awesome. So we're going to actually open up the floor to questions. I know the three films really dealt with a lot of issues. So I don't know how much time we have, but like it talks about gender, sexuality, religion, race, culture. So let's see what kind of questions come up and how Harjant can kind of proceed ahead with having a dialogue on those issues. All right. Do you have another mic? Yeah. So